you went under the wheels.
Perfected.
Welcome to Under the Wheels. I'm Matthew.
And I'm Gabe.
And today we are getting, cerebral in the 1950s with
This
Don't Worry,
one's
Darling.
for the ladies.
Hashtag girl power. Oh my god. There was a moment where I was watching it and like it was like one of those moments where it's like, oh man, hashtag girl power. And I just was like, oh my god. Gemma Chan, what are you doing? What are you doing?
God. Okay.
You know what?
No, you were talking about that
I'm
moment. I thought you were talking about
right?
a different one, but yeah.
Oh my god. I know, that's why I specified it. I was like, I bet, because like there were a couple of qualifiers, but yeah, you know that moment where it's just
Well, yeah, because there's a couple moments where it's just like, oh, this is one of those.
Can you tell we're trying to take down the patriarchy? Obviously loaded image. Okay. All right.
For a movie, this is a lot of bra moments for something that's supposed to be a women's movie.
All right. Okay. All right. Okay. So let's do it like we always do it, so people who don't want to listen to us chatter can just shut off the podcast. Gabe, give us a brief synopsis of Don't Worry, Darling, and then we will get into our ratings.
Okay. Should I give like the spoiler-filled synopsis?
No.
Okay.
No. Not yet, anyway.
Okay. So there's
So it's like the 1960s or 50s, and Florence Pugh is a wife with an incredibly horny husband.
Oh yeah. So Florence Pugh is married to Harry Styles, and they live in like a 1950s style planned community out in the desert. And all the women are like homemakers, and all the husbands work for the Victory Project, which is a company run by Frank, who's
Yes.
like Frank, all-time great villain name. He's played by Chris Pine, all-time great, just villain of a guy. I'm just kidding. I'm sure Chris Pine is a swell dude. And everything's very secretive. Like Chris Pine is like, discretion and order are super important. Don't act weird or do anything weird or break the rules. And everyone's like, wow, isn't this town so wonderful? Everything is so perfect. Almost too perfect, if you ask me. And yeah, so it basically, Florence Pugh is like this housewife who spends most of her days cooking and getting absolutely wasted with her alcoholic neighbor, Bunny, something, Billy, played by Olivia Wilde, who also allegedly directed the movie.
That's mean.
Well, like we'll get into the drama about people have accused Florence Pugh of directing like half the scenes. But anyway, so yeah, and then she's like, well, what if, I don't know, she starts seeing things that are weird and having like the most sort of boilerplate psychological thriller, what's happening, what's real experiences, where she like see a person, but then they're not really there, or like, well, actually that's basically the whole movie. And then, yeah, she's like, something's up. Something is wrong with the premise of this movie. Like, something is off. Something feels off. And I'm going to get to the bottom of this. And she tries to, and it doesn't really work out. And then Frank, Chris Pine, is like, hey, you, You're causing trouble. You're a smarty pants, you know. You're actually right. All this is like, there is something wrong with all this, but I'm not going to tell you. You just got to find out, which is just a weird thing to do. And then eventually Florence Pugh discovers the big secret and beats the bad guys and escapes. And,
it's like Black Widow all over again.
It's like, how do I describe it? It's like Get Out, but like instead of about like race, it's about like how hard it is to be a white woman in America.
Well, which we've covered before. We've covered like the stuff about that before. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, and then like it's not like Get Out, where like Get Out is told from an outsider's perspective, where like Chris, Daniel Kaluuya's character, doesn't know like what's going on. He's not from the community, and he kind of comes in as a visitor and is weirded out. Mm-hmm. Whereas like Florence Pugh is a part of the community and is weirded out.
Right.
And it's like, I don't know. It's very boilerplate psychological thriller. Like psychological thrillers are a genre that I thought died back in 2010, and then like died because they suck. Like it's actually a terrible genre. I've never seen a good psychological thriller except Get Out. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of the problem. Like Jordan Peele showed up and made the one good psychological thriller ever. And I think accidentally revitalized the genre by doing so. And now we're stuck
that
with
and
it again.
Hereditary.
Hereditary is more of just a straight horror movie.
It is, but they use a lot of like, I feel like Hereditary brought back in like, hey, look, isn't this weird? Look at this weird thing that's happening. Isn't it weird? Like, I guess A24
I would not count Hereditary in that. Hereditary is a pretty straightforward like demonic possession movie.
I guess so. Well, there was other like, I don't know. I think like the whole like weird symbolism, the blending of like, because like one of the reasons
it's a very artfully done demonic possession movie with a lot of very dark comedy to it, but I think that is what it is.
Okay. Well, I would say there's psychological stuff involved. But anyway, we can agree to disagree on it because it's not something I'm willing to go to the mat on. I'm willing
to go to the mat on the definition of a psychological thriller. I think psychological thriller the hinges on the main character not being sure if their reality is real or not.
That's right. You hate right. You hate those because I remember that. Yeah.
So yeah, like think, Get Out, Jacob's Ladder, A Cure for Wellness.
A Cure for Wellness. Nice pull.
Thank you. Many, many others that I don't like, that I'm sure exist. Mm-hmm. Most M. Night Shyamalan movies.
Yeah. So I guess the better question is, what did you think of Don't Worry, Darling?
Yeah, this was a real stinker. I would say mediocre on our Under the Wheels rating scale.
Yeah, I would say it's perfectly fine.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think it's as bad as people say it is. I don't think that the twist was as bad as I was expecting, because I was expecting a real stinker. And my thoughts on twists in movies are basically like, how effective can you lay it into the framework of the movie? Obviously,
here's the problem. So there's basically two layers of twists, or two twists. Mm-hmm. The first one I guessed about a month ago, correctly. The second was so stupid I started laughing in the theater.
Okay, so let's go over, like, just quickly, let me just hit some of the good stuff, and then I do want to talk about, like, the twist and everything. And okay, so here's how I feel about Olivia Wilde as a director. I think she's great with actors. I think she's got some weird pacing problems. I think she tries to do some interesting things with camera work and let it play out. And I felt like this was a stretch that didn't necessarily work, mainly because the screenplay was just kind of whatever. I mean, I think like the actors are all well. Okay, I think Florence Pugh is good, but Florence Pugh's generally pretty good in most things she's in.
She's good in about everything.
Chris Pine is. I love Chris Pine. Don't make me judge him. Don't make me judge Chris Pine.
Okay. Actually, finish what you're gonna say, and then I'll.
I think
rattling things off.
I think everyone is solid. I know that there's been a lot of like, oh, Harry Styles is so bad in this movie. I thought he was fine. I thought he doesn't have a huge job he has to do, and when he actually has to like work for what he has to do, he's perfectly fine. It's fine. He's perfectly fine. He does exactly what he needs to. There's that moment early on where he's cooking that felt very natural, and I kind of appreciated that. The way that Florence Pugh and Harry Styles interact as like a married couple, I was like, oh yeah, I buy it. I can see why it might have been awkward on set if Olivia Wilde was making out with him on when the cameras weren't rolling, and then Florence Pugh was making out with him when the cameras were rolling. I can see that being a little awkward. I'm like, who else was in it? Oh yeah, Kiki Lane shows up.
Well, yeah, okay, she does. Very underused, but she's there.
So, like, is Kiki Lane actually a good actress? I would venture to say that maybe it just depends on the director she's working with, because she was good. She was great in If Beale Street Could Talk.
Yep.
She was in The Old Guard.
Yep.
She was bad in Chip and Dale. Don't ask me why I saw this. But she was bad in the Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers movie. Like, she was really bad in that movie. And then she was here in Don't Worry, Darling. Although it would have been funny if, like, after she cut her throat, she, like, stood up and started running towards Charlize Theron. I'd be like, hey, there we go. Tease the Old Guard, too.
So, the thing is, like, all the performances were weird in this movie. And I don't know how intentional it is, because like the opening scene is it's Florence Pugh, Harry Styles, Nick Kroll, Olivia Wilde, and two other people at like a little house party.
Right.
And they all act like people who have never had a drink or been to a party in their lives, and then we're told 5 minutes ago, hey, act like you're at a party, we're going to film you. Which it's just bizarre. Like, everyone acts like super like over the top, cheesy and campy, and they have these very like exaggerated, almost wooden actions and mannerisms in that opening scene.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't a fan of the opening scene, but again, I wasn't a fan of the opening scene in Booksmart either. Well, so yeah, I can go ahead. Let me
continue, because this weird train of thought keeps going.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, one thing that is kind of strange is like, and again, I don't know if this is intentional or not, because it could be. All of the characters, especially the men, act like weird nerds in every scene.
Yeah.
Like Florence Pugh at one point is like, what do they do when they're going off to work? And I'm thinking to myself, like, well, based on the performances, it just seems like they all go to like some dude's house and blow each other for 8 hours and then come back. Like, that's how they behave. You know what I mean? Like everyone acts like kind of this weird, like nerds trying to play at being frat stars, sort of a feel, but they like don't know how to do that because they've like never felt the touch of a woman before, or again, like had a drink or know anything about like social interaction. But again, based on the twist, that could have been intentional. I don't know.
Yeah. I wonder if it's like, because it sounds very fourth dimensional chessy.
Yeah, like that's what's weird about this movie. And then you have Chris Pine, who I really like, even though his mouth hangs open in everything he does. Like, he just, I don't know if he can't breathe through his nose or what. But
and his lips just swell everywhere.
Yeah.
since we're taking, cheap shots at him.
I know. But I like Chris Pine.
I do
in
too.
general. Yeah. In this, his performance seemed, again, off. Like he plays like this charismatic, CEO, town leader kind of guy who has almost no charisma. Like every time he's like, "Hey, I'm the big cool boss man," he just comes off like really stiff and uncomfortable, which is like weird. But again, based on the twist, could be intentional. I don't know.
I don't know. I think that was so apparent. I know where he
Like it's
who
one of
he
those
was
things where
trying
it's like
to
I don't
mimic,
know if
but-
Chris Pine intended to deliver that performance because he's like again playing some sort of 4D chess around the plot twist,
Right.
or if he was turned off by all the on-set drama and just decided to phone it in.
It's so funny because everyone loves Chris Pine in this movie. You're like, out of everything that I've read, you're the only person like critical review wise that's like, I didn't like Chris Pine in this movie.
I mean, I like Chris Pine in general. I don't think this is his best work by any means.
I actually I like him a lot. I feel like it was almost like a return to form. And I'll tell you, the one scene that I thought was really good was the scene between him and Florence Pugh. Like anytime they had to interact directly with each other. So like at the dinner, I thought that scene was great, even if it was
that
kind
scene
of
is good. That's probably Chris Pine's best scene. But like
Yeah.
he has so much more like natural charisma in like the Princess Diaries 2 than he does in this movie. And it's baffling to me. I don't understand why that's the case. And then
you know what? I think it was just something that wasn't working for you because I thought it was really
maybe
good
not.
in it. Yeah.
I mean, and then you got Harry Styles, who teaser for this plot twist plays basically two different characters. The trad Chad Harry Styles, which is who he is for most of the movie, he does decently enough. Like he's not like 100% there a lot of the time, but like he's like 80% of the way there, which is okay. Like it's fine. The soy beta Harry Styles, which he plays for a short chunk of the movie, he doesn't really do so well. It just comes off really strange.
I thought it was fine. It worked for me. I think I'm going to be a lot more forgiving on this movie than you, obviously, because I'm fine on it. Like I thought it was fine.
Yeah, and then in terms of like technically, it looks great. Like the production design is fantastic. All the homes look like they look like little confections. Like you could just eat them. It's really nicely done. It's got kind of that super shiny, like Ford v Ferrari, nostalgic for the past look to it for most of the movie.
Right.
So like
which is intentional.
It's totally intentional, and it works. Like it helps highlight the setting as well, but it also just looks good. Like all these blown out highlights, all of these like bright like white or like cream colored surfaces bounce a lot of light off, or like light is diffused through a lot of like white curtains and things like that. Really good, really well done. In terms of like where they place the camera or how they move it for things, it was weird. A lot of people throughout the movie are shot looking up at them, or the camera's like weirdly low relative to the subject. And I don't know why that is. There's also a lot of scenes where the camera is moving, like it's like spinning around people, but in a weirdly disorienting way. Like for a scene that shouldn't be this disorienting, it is disorienting. And also, the movie breaks the 180-degree rule a lot. Again, in scenes where I don't know if it makes sense to do that.
Do you have any examples? Because like I'm trying to think of one. But I'm trying to think of what. Okay, so I will say this.
Here's an example.
Yeah,
There's
go
two
ahead.
examples of each of the. Here's an example of each of the things I mentioned. So.
Yep.
The house party at Frank's house. We are introduced to that scene with 4 husbands and 4 wives having cocktails and chatting with each other. It's either at Frank's house or at the new neighbor's house. I can't remember which. But so it's like they're kind of next to each other, but it's like it's the boys chatting and then it's the girls chatting. Mm-hmm. And the camera is like spinning around them like a whirling dervish. Like it's going around in circles at surprisingly high speed. Mm-hmm. And as a result, it's like we kind of breeze past their conversations in a strange way where it's like we're only getting snippets of what they're saying. And it keeps, because it's spinning around 2 groups, you're getting 2 conversations at once in like little bits and pieces. And I just don't think that added anything.
Yeah.
You know, it's like why are we moving around this much and getting kind of this scattershot version of what's being said?
Yeah.
And then the other example is of
the 180
degree rule.
Yeah, that's the one I'm more interested in because I know what you're saying about the rotating camera, and I've got opinions on that, but
yeah, so
they're
like
pretty much similar to yours. Yeah.
There's a scene where you mentioned Kiki Lane's character, she cuts her own throat. Mm-hmm. Florence Pugh sees it, and then everyone else is sort of in denial about it. So she's telling Harry Styles like, "Hey, this thing happened. Nobody believes me." And he kind of is like, well, maybe you imagined it or whatever. And he's like, he's just kind of like, I'm worried about you. Like, are you okay? And he like hugs her and they kind of have this little talk. But the camera swaps, like it moves from one side to the other of the 2 of them repeatedly. And I was just sitting there trying to figure out, like, why are they doing this? What does this serve? What is the point of doing such a big, distracting camera move in this conversation? Mm-hmm. And I couldn't come up with an answer.
Yeah. I feel like I'll chalk that up to editing. Okay, so I'll chalk that up more to editing. And I keep going back and forth. I'm like, was the editing actually good in the movie, or or was it bad? Like, I keep going back and forth on that. But here's what I'll say about the camera work. It was shot by Matthew Libatique. Most people will know him for shooting. I mean, he shot Black Swan, which is the Mirror movie. So the entire time I'm watching this, I'm just like, God damn it, this guy can't get away from fucking mirrors, can he? Let the guy shoot something that doesn't have mirrors. But a lot of that kind of bled into this movie. A lot of the reviews I read were like, oh, the camera work is so fantastic. I thought the camera work was just like the rest of the movie, perfectly fine. I didn't think there was anything amazing about it. I also didn't think there was anything particularly terrible about it.
It's like, no, that's the thing. It's like, I don't think it was bad. It's just like,
baffling.
It was just perplexing.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, why is this being framed this way and not like any other way?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know, like almost all the problems, because like to me a lot of that stuff is like it's perfectly fine. And I even thought that her ramping up in sort of insanity and hysterics and everything was like, it was pretty well done. I'm thought again, I mean, and we can get into I don't know, I guess I don't really have too much to say, because to me a lot of the movie worked, like sort of the heightened goofy performances and everything I thought were good for what they were intending to do with the movie, which was kind of like to put you off kilter, and also to kind of like, hey, you remember the idea that you have of TV shows and from the 50s and the 60s and how great life was, like to me a lot of this movie got into sort of like the whole like political conversation, and then as the movie went on, it gets even further. So like it's pretty blunt in the fact of like, hey, don't you remember the 1950s and 60s when life was great as represented by Mad Men, and which obviously didn't represent that time period as being great if you actually deconstruct it. I say, having never watched Mad Men, but I've only been absorbed. I've only been exposed to like other things. Although I watched the first episode, which was fantastic. But like, you know, like a lot of people who are like, oh, we need to go back to the 1950s when, you know, when it was like, you know, the dad knew best and alcohol was everywhere and cars were better back then. So obviously there's like commenting on that and sort of mixing in like the boozy housewife culture of that era.
Boozy and bougie.
Boozy and bougie. Actually, like, so obviously I'm a big Disney fan. I thought they were gonna have this big twist because, you know, they go to Frank's house and he's like, yeah, look it, I've got my set here. I've got my little, you know, diorama of the Victory Project. I've got my little experimental prototype community of tomorrow. So I thought that's what the big twist was gonna be. It was like, hey, he's Walt Disney. And it's like, it's Epcot, can't you tell? But Epcot's a terrible idea because it's basically just a dictatorship in a local town. Wouldn't that be great? So that's what I thought. That's one of the things I thought might have happened, might have been going on. And then like I thought they might have been using like the food to control all of the wives into thinking that the world was better than it actually was.
There's some weird moment like. So there's a moment in the trailer, which is kind of early in the movie, where Florence Pugh is like cracking
eggs. Yeah.
And it's like, that is such a not like interesting thing.
Yeah. And it goes on
like,
so long.
It goes on so long, and it has like the chilling, spooky music playing, like dun dun dun. Isn't this terrifying? It's like, not really. She's just crushing eggs in her hand in a like brightly lit, beautifully designed house,
and looking curiously at them.
Yeah, and looking just sort of puzzled. That's not scary.
I will say I did like the sound design though. As she was crushing the eggs, I was like, ooh, that's a pleasing sound. Good job. That sounds appropriate. I don't know. I'm getting fixated on sound design now.
Well, that's all you got, really.
Yeah, I mean...
yeah, a lot of the psychological thriller bits, like the scares, I guess, for lack of a better term, they were like all, whatever, you know?
Yeah. So I will say, like, I think there was an attempt, I think there was at least an attempt to be made at having, like, if you are watching closely, you'll, you know, start getting the feeling that something isn't quite right. Because, like, I know it's going to sound weird, but one of the things I noticed was the fact that Florence Pugh's eye color changed. Like, what? As the movie went, yeah, I know. As the movie went, it started with her having, like, brown eyes. And then after a certain moment, I was like, oh, she's got blue eyes.
What?
Wait a second. What?
No.
Why did that happen? Yeah. There was, but again, I don't know how intentional that was. I don't know if that was just like.
I mean, you can tell something's off by the fact that she's crushing eggs into
that don't have anything in it. Yeah, I know, but like that moment where she goes out to touch the thing and everything turns red and then like you have all of those weird images and I liked all that stuff. I mean, it's kind of like weird. I love the weird images and stuff. Like it all worked for me. I was fine with it. I thought it was completely adequately
that's all
fine.
Very yeah, I mean, like all the stuff of all the I guess abstract imagery was all perfectly adequate.
And it's and it's fun, even though it gets like some of the okay. So I was also thinking like, I wonder if she's trying to like, hey, have you seen Suspiria? Look, there's a creepy dancer. Isn't that what you think Suspiria the movie is like? Because you obviously haven't watched it. So I thought about you when I was watching that scene. I was like, I wonder if Gabe's gonna like rip this moment apart with like the creepy dancer with like the cut face and everything.
No, I mean, again, it's fine. It does what it's supposed to do in the most like, yeah, you did it way possible.
Here's a gold star sticker where all the gold paint was taken off. There's your sticker.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess we should get into spoilers.
Let's get into it. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
So twist number 1, which I correctly predicted like a month ago, is that this movie takes place in the present day.
Yes.
And that this community is like a fake invention by a bunch of weird like 50s nostalgia people. Plot twist 2, which I never would have guessed, probably because I haven't seen Serenity, is that not only does this movie take place in the present day and that the world they live in is, like a 50s throwback construct, it's also a video game. They're in the metaverse. Project Victory is in the metaverse.
Did you like that twist?
Like,
I know it made you laugh. I know it made you
yeah.
laugh. Yeah.
I liked it in the sense that it is maybe the single dumbest twist
I loved it.
I've ever seen. Like the this takes place in present day thing. Like that's an obvious twist because it makes sense and it works. It was all a video game twist. It doesn't, like, no one could see that coming because it is so stupid. But it's also the fucking twist in Serenity.
That's Serenity, the Stephen Knight Serenity.
Yeah.
Well, no, it's not. I mean, it's not the same. It's just as the twist is better, and don't worry, darling, trust me.
But yeah, basically, the twist is that Florence Pugh and her kind of sort of boyfriend live in like some crappy, presumably New York or other large city. And they're miserable. And then Harry Styles is like a weird nerd, which it's all starting to come together. He's like this, basically like this antisocial shut-in, who starts listening to basically Jordan Peterson, but it's Frank, it's Chris Pine, and he gets like indoctrinated into Project Victory, where he kidnaps Florence Pugh, chains her to a bed, and puts her in the metaverse where they can live this perfect life. And he has to leave the metaverse for 8 hours a day to go work to pay for his incredibly expensive subscription to the metaverse Project Victory video game thing. Yeah.
I liked it. I like that part of it.
Oh God, it's so horrendous. It's just like
the only thing that would have made it better is if Florence Pugh was like this like 5,000-pound woman who's chained to it as he's like slowly feeding her. Like as he's like, or he is, he's like this like disgusting. I mean, and
he
that's
kind of
just
is.
it. He
like,
is a
they
disgusting.
Try to make him look like this gross guy.
Well, no, they succeeded. He looked terrible. Well, basically, they just took Chris Pine's skin and gave it to him. But
it's like,
all right, that's my last
like
cheap shot at Chris Pine.
It's all starting to make sense, except for like a bunch of stuff that was weird about the movie suddenly starts to make sense, and then a bunch of stuff that was like plausible and acceptable about the movie suddenly stops making sense. That's what the twist has, this weird dual effect. We're like, okay, why does everyone in Victory act so weird? Like, why do all these like, why do
all the men act so weird?
Yeah, like why do all these based manly 50s men act like weird geeks, like dudes at a Blizzard convention or something?
Right.
Because they are weird geeks and
yep.
dudes at Blizzard conventions. They're that in the real world, play acting as like Andy Griffith or whatever.
They've all captured their wives and
talk softly, and then it's like, why is Frank, Mr. like CEO who everyone loves and thinks he's a genius, why is he like weirdly uncharismatic? Because he's Jordan Peterson, who's also like kind of weirdly uncharismatic.
Yeah, go on.
So it's like, oh my God, this 4D chess, like it's all coming together. But then at the same time, it's like, wait a minute. If this is a video game, then how the fuck does anything Florence Pugh ever experienced across the movie make sense? Like when she crushes empty eggs into dust. How? Why? Is it a bug? Is it a glitch? Why would that be coded in? Like, why would her weird hallucinations be coded into the experience?
I mean,
When
I
the
think
wall, when she's attacked by her wall,
yeah.
why was that coded in? The plane crash.
I mean, like it's
Like what line of code was that? Like if the whole thing is built, coded, curated by Frank, who is also, he's not just Jordan Peterson, but he's also Mark Zuckerberg, another guy who's
wildly uncharismatic.
Zuckerberg is wildly uncharismatic. Yeah. Jordan Peterson has like some shred of appeal. Zuckerberg absolutely not. Like if he programmed this whole thing, or him and his buddies like built this whole simulation, like why is it so broken? Like it's like maybe that's more 4D chess, right? Like all these big open world games are just riddled with bugs. So maybe that's why. Maybe that's why like half the shit in Victory doesn't work half the time. It's like, oh well, it's just like you remember how when Cyberpunk first came out, how buggy that was. Like it's the same thing. I don't know.
The
it's
textures
just so
didn't
baffling.
load on the wall. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure part of it is also like, you know how like when you ingest something that you're not supposed to and your body starts reacting badly to it, in order to protect you, it like pushes you into a different zone. I mean, I would probably chalk some of it up to that, like, because I guess it's supposed to be like peppered throughout that she's slowly waking up from the simulation. Things are happening that are starting to like help her break out of that reality. Unfortunately, Kiki Lane has to die they have to sacrifice the black character in order to make sure it happens, an underdeveloper character in the meantime.
Only one in the whole movie too.
There's one other black woman who has a line. But yeah, no, she's like the only person that you'd recognize. Yeah. Cause I was looking for it. I was like, oh, okay. I'm sure that was part of it, is like the mind's reaction to it. I think the plane crashing was kind of like an allusion to when Kiki Lane's character was carrying the plane out. Maybe it is like a test, and it could also potentially be that like Frank put these little things in there to like see who'd go fishing and see if he could bring it back.
To bring it back to Serenity. But like, again, it's just like half the shit doesn't make sense. Like, okay, there are some people in the movie who act like NPCs. Like there's like when Florence Pugh and Olivia Wilde and one other person are at like a department store. Yeah. They're like these models modeling various kitchen appliances and stuff. Those are like presumably NPCs in this video game. But like, what about the trolley driver? Is he an NPC, or is he like...
He's like a coder who's just like...
Is he a coder? Is he like a subscriber who's grinding to meet his subscription quota?
I don't know. I mean, the way that he responds... Is he
like some play-to-earn crypto miner? Like, I don't
yeah, well, the way that he responds... I mean, I think you have to take some of it with like a little bit of leeway, because in order to hide the twist that they're going for. But the problem is
that like the twist calls attention to the construction of the world and of the film. So then it's like, by doing so, they're sort of inviting all of this scrutiny, where it's like you look at Us, right? Mm-hmm. The parallel world logically doesn't make any sense, but it is always framed as kind of this liminal dream space. So it's like, the movie isn't asking you to think about it. It's just like, if you think about movies a lot, you probably will.
Right.
This movie is like straight up inviting you, like, hey, like this whole world has been constructed by people for an explicit purpose. So then that invites the questions of why? Why was this made this way, not some other way? How does this work? Why is this thing not working? What is Gemma Chan's relationship to all this?
Right. So
is she a prisoner? Is she co-CEO?
So like a couple of things. Like the first thing that I kind of want to
address is... Is she the real Jordan Peterson?
So the first thing I want to address, and then I'll get to that, because that had my favorite moment in the movie, as we all know. But the thing about that you were saying about like it calls attention to the twist. obviously you're right. I was gonna say like I don't know, it worked for me because like I didn't like go back and like rewatch the whole movie. But you're right, it didn't work for I would say 90% of people because 90% of people say this movie is utter trash because of the twist probably. So yeah, I have to agree with you that the twist did not work for most people. I just kind of like at that point I was like, oh, okay, that's like in broad strokes, I like this idea of what they're going for about, like these the insulated men culture who are, like all they do is nothing and they rely on their wives to get everything done or whatever. And, this guy's like, oh, the perfect reality would be if I could just go down on my wife every night, but dang, I have to work 8 hours in order to do it. But don't worry, I know what's good for our relationship. And so like, he just kind of hijacks the relationship. Like all of the guys in this dream world just kind of hijack the relationship so that they can basically turn their wives into inanimate objects. I appreciate what they're going for that.
One thing I didn't get is Florence Pugh, like, so in the real world, she's in the medical profession.
Right.
Is she a nurse who's broke or like a surgeon who's broke?
I thought she was a surgeon who was broke.
Which makes no sense. I mean, because surgeons get paid like fat stacks of cash.
Maybe she's a bad surgeon and keeps getting malpractice suits held against her.
Like, because it's like, yeah, like when they introduce her in the real world, which nice directorial / cinematographic touch is very like dingy and dark compared to Project Victory.
Well, not only that, but it also like the transition goes from her having a medical procedure to her being the one giving the medical procedure.
Yeah, so that's really well done. I want to give them credit for that.
Yeah.
So yeah, when we transition to the real world, at first it seems like she's a surgeon because she is very like commanding of the environment around her. She seems like she's running the operating room to a degree. I'm not 100% sure, but that's how it comes off. Then when she comes home to like this awful apartment with her, like
dead-end
crappy boyfriend.
Yeah.
It's like, and they're always complaining about how they have no money. I'm thinking it's like, is she a nurse then? Because this economic situation makes sense for a nurse, but not a surgeon.
Or
like if she was
an
a
intern.
surgeon, or maybe an intern or like a medical
just got
student.
a residency or whatever.
Yeah, like a residency. Something like that, maybe. Sure, yeah. But like a professional surgeon would be living in like, if they're in the New York area, would be living in like the Hamptons or something.
Depending on how old she is, because like,
or at least like not be worried about money.
Right. All right, let's find out. Present day surgeon named Alice, who I mean, or like her boyfriend just spends all of his money on podcast episodes. Subscribe to Under the Wheels; it's free
on premium podcast episodes.
Yeah, premium podcast episodes.
He gives too much to Frank's Patreon.
Give me another $100. He needs it for his Kickstarter. I don't know. That's an excellent question. Again, I didn't really question it too much because I think like they move through it fast enough. But that's a good point. Like, how long has she been a surgeon here? Why is she still struggling? So
again, well, it's one of those movies that like seems to
invite
a lot of this stuff because it's like, because then like again, like it's like, why do they go into the metaverse? Because they're miserable, and she works like 30-hour shifts as a surgeon, but is still broke somehow, and like Harry Styles is resentful because the scene where they argue is so funny. Because she's basically just like, I'm a girl boss. I girl boss super fucking hard, and you're too much of a soy beta loser to handle that.
Incel piece of shit.
And then, like Harry Styles is like, yeah. Just like delivers a bunch of like impotent like nonsense back to her.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, damn, like he literally kidnapped her into the metaverse because he couldn't handle how much of a girl boss she is. When it's
yeah,
because the thing is, it's like, say what you will about like working and independence and finances and all that. All that aside, she is genuinely miserable in the real world. Like she fucking hates it there.
Yeah.
Not saying that, you know, Harry Styles' character does the right thing. He absolutely does the wrong thing.
Right.
But like, her life is not so much an indictment of her or any one person, but just like the world that they live in that requires her to work 30 hours as a surgeon, presumably, and not be able to make ends meet.
So I will say this. This is where the movie kind of loses me a little bit, is I didn't buy them as a couple in the real world.
So, no, not at all. They're so not believable.
So that's why I like the twist of, he's like, don't you understand? I did this all for you. And I half expected her to be like, why? I fucking hate you. Like, you just manipulated me and brainwashed me to love you. And so it's like, again, this movie isn't exactly subtle with its messaging. But that was one of those moments where I was like, this is the part where you just go for the very obvious, like we don't really love each other. We kind of grew apart because I liked working. I liked doing my shifts. And the worst part of my day was coming home to you not doing anything.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's like, we have no inkling as to why they're together in the first place. We just know, like, their relationship has soured.
In the real world, yes.
In the real world.
Yeah.
Like, Harry Styles is unemployed. He just listens to podcasts all day and bitches.
With his From Russia with Love poster in the back. They did not want you to miss that.
Oh, my God.
He likes James Bond. He thinks he's James Bond. Oh, it does make sense why he has the British accent now. It all makes sense.
Yeah, that's right. He just sits around listening to premium podcasts that he apparently pays for with all of Florence Pugh's wages on Patreon.
But he can't remember to pay for the water bill.
Yep, while she works. Oh, yeah, that's right. The water's broken because they're poor, but she's a surgeon or something. Again, how? Yeah. See, like, we understand that the relationship wasn't always like this. It's deteriorated into this state. But we also have no idea why it started in the first place. Yeah. And then, like a lot of what Frank says is very, like, superficial. Like, it's superficially meant to sound like some shit Jordan Peterson would say. But, like, on its own doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. I mean, again, I like the Chris Pine's like the least problem I had. I mean, you know.
Well, again, because it's like Chris Pine, love the guy, gives a weird performance, but his performance may be genius in the context of the twist. I just don't know. I think it's more like the way his character's written is sort of strange.
Yeah.
Because again, like, I can't tell like what he's doing or what his appeal is.
Yeah.
Like, if all he does is make like vague overtures to like, you know, the modern world forces equality on people, but equality is just chaos. You know, you order your life, clean your room, da da da. That on its own is not compelling at all.
No,
like,
no.
I don't understand. Like, they don't do enough to make him appealing to where, like, oh, I get why these like weirdos like him so much. Or like, yeah, Jordan Peterson says all like the clean your room, sort yourself out crap, but like he does say it in a way where like oh yeah, you know, my life is
the Canadian accent snuck in there. Good, well done, well done, sir. Well done.
I mean, you gotta have the Canadian accent.
I mean, yeah, it's Canadian Kermit the Frog who cries a lot. Yeah,
like he does put it in a way that's compelling. Like this,
right.
Like he does successfully articulate the idea that like
he's a good public speaker.
Yeah, like you can affect the outcomes in your own life. If you feel dejected or depressed, try taking more responsibility for yourself, and maybe you can like turn things around that way. He does a good job of articulating that in real life. Frank, on the other hand, it's just like, whose world is this? Ours. What? I don't know.
We create the world. We have control. Remember, the control is the important part.
There's beauty in symmetry and order, control.
That's what it's all about.
Well, it's just like it's not even like complete thoughts that he's saying. It's just like chaos, order, equality, hierarchy, control, symmetry, beauty, order, chaos. Like, it's just like those words kind of repeated over and over again.
So you mean it's the title? It's the title song to Batman Beyond.
I thought the title song was just like some dude shredding on a guitar.
I mean, it is, but then they have like all of these like words that pop up that are supposed to be like evocative. It's like he's just the title. He's the title song of Batman Beyond. I mean I thought he was good. I like the scene where it's like the sort of we have too many chess metaphors in here, but the sort of like chess match of knowledge between Florence Pugh and Chris Pine. Although it definitely gave me like weird Outlaw King vibes, especially when he's like, did you see the Outlaw King?
No.
Okay, so
they're both in the Outlaw King.
They're not only are they both in the Outlaw King, they have like this very explicit sex scene together. And then in the movie, like after Harry Styles goes down on her, and then they're at Frank's house, like all of a sudden Frank just gets horny, or not Frank, Harry Styles just gets horny for Florence Pugh, semi understandably so. But anyway, so they start going at it, and then like Chris Pine is just randomly watching them.
Yeah,
and it's
he
really
stands
creepy.
there being like, yeah.
He's like, this is why I throw parties in the 1950s. And then it comes back, and it's like, oh, cool. I do appreciate how that like goes to discredit Alice in the movie. Although, again, probably a scene that's not particularly well written because like they just kind of leave it out there like she's having an affair with him, and she could have just been like, no, honey, it's that time. Remember when we did it in his house? He was looking at us all creepy, and you didn't notice for some reason. Like that would have, you'd think that would be the progression of where that scene would go. Like, I wasn't cheating on you. But going back to your question about Gemma Chan, like I definitely think that they make it very clear that like she is in on it with him. Maybe like in how in Ex Machina, what's his name? Oh my God, I want to call him Jason Isaacs, and I know Oscar Isaac has like his assistant. It's like the same thing, but then the assistant gets control and wrestles it away from Chris Pine.
But it's weird. So like, but then what happens? She kills Chris Pine. Why? Is she like, you loser, like you've lost control of the situation and now I have to stab you? Is it like a mafia hit sort of thing? Or is it like I have suddenly woken up to the fact that I too am a prisoner and I'm angry at you, my kidnapper husband?
I think
unsure, stabs him? Or is it like I'm Jordan Peterson / Mark Zuckerberg now, stabs him? And then she goes on the radio,
for the Dark
and then
Knight
she has the
Rises
Patreon
twist.
show where she tells people to clean their room.
I think they were partners together in this thing, and he just kept fucking around. And
so is she is she gonna end it, or is she like under new management? We're gonna have Project Victory Part 2, where I'm in control.
Well, we definitely don't have to worry about this movie getting a sequel. But if there was a sequel, actually, maybe.
No,
budget
but like
of
they
$35
have
million,
the
box
fucking
office
scene in the
31.
fucking movie, which then begs all these goddamn questions.
I think the idea is under new management. That's the vibe I got, was like, you're terrible at controlling this thing. Like, look, all of the things that we set up are gone. So I'm going to take this over and, probably start marketing it to women.
So it's Project Victory for the ladies, where she's like, clean your room, sort yourself out, take responsibility for your life. Order is the antidote to chaos. Like all that she's just the same thing, but like with a woman in charge.
She'll just make it free to play for everyone, but women only. It'll just be she'll be like, oh, he had a heart attack and died because
Ladies,
like, oh, no,
kidnap
let
your
me get
boyfriends and chain them to this bed, and then
I think
you can fuck them in the metaverse.
no, I think what'll happen is she'll just sell a very specific very specific part, and be like, all right, and women, you're good to go. Just there it is for you for whatever you want to do. Plug in and do whatever you want. Because
Well, the other thing, it's like
they don't have to be housewives anymore. They can be whatever they want. They don't need
the movie
they don't need
hammers home
boyfriends.
this like thing of
Hashtag
like
girl boss. Go ahead.
I guess, yeah, but it's like, again, she girl bosses all over Chris Pine, and I don't know how we're supposed to react to that. We're supposed to be like, yeah, you girl boss him, girl, or like.
I laughed my ass off. I thought it was
hilarious. Yeah, because it makes no
so
fucking
funny.
sense.
It was, oh my god.
And then the other complicating factor is Olivia Wilde's character. She's also in on it the whole time because she's voluntarily there.
I
And
liked
it's
that
like-
part though.
But
I like that part.
I like it because it's very humanizing.
Yes.
It's also strange because this is like a political ideas movie. And when you're an ideas movie, it's weird if you like undermine yourself. Because the whole thing seems to be, it's like, oh, like young men shouldn't be online because they're going to get dangerous ideas from self-help gurus like Jordan Peterson. And then they're going to want to, which is like not that disturbing, honestly. But then like Olivia Wilde is there and it's like, I'm not some weird incel. I just like lost my kids in the real world. And like this fantasy is easier for me to swallow. Like I am genuinely happy here. Which is honestly way more disturbing than like half the other shit that goes on, like in an existential sense, because this was kind of my beef with Ready Player One, where it's like, oh, is the real world a terrible place? Don't worry about it. Just go into the metaverse and run around with the Iron Giant. This is kind of like there's this weird thing where like these characters who are miserable in the real world, instead of trying to make their real situation materially better, they escape into the metaverse and live in a simulation. That is incredibly disturbing, but the movie doesn't seem to treat it as disturbing.
So here's what I'll say about Bunny is her character's not supposed to know that she's in on it. That was my read of it.
Wait, Bunny is not supposed to know that Bunny's in on it?
Bunny pretends like she doesn't know that she's in a simulation.
Well, everyone does.
No, I know. But like her husband isn't aware that she is aware. She
said, "I chose this."
Right. She makes like the philosophical choice of like, she could try to break out if she wants to, but instead she accepts the reality that she's in. Because
don't know.
it's a better environment to just live with the lie. Because that's all she has left for herself. I don't think the movie
communicates it in that way, though. I think when she says, "I chose this," it's like, no, I chose to put myself in the metaverse instead of living in the real world.
The only reason I feel like the only reason I even have an inclination of that is because when her husband runs to her, she starts pretending like she isn't aware of it. That's why.
I think she's pretending she isn't aware that Jack... now I remember Harry Styles' character. Jack is dead. She's trying to hide it long enough that Florence Pugh can escape.
Right, but she is, but also the way that she interacts with her husband, the way her husband acts and everything like that, I feel like her husband is oblivious to the fact that she's aware of what goes on. That she's aware that it's all a simulation.
I didn't get that. I got it more that like... Yeah, I got it more that they were both in on it, but they have different views of it. Like, Olivia Wilde is like, I'm in on it, but if people want to opt out, they should be able to.
Right.
Whereas I think Nick Kroll's character is like, I'm in on it, but like I want to maintain it at all costs. Mm-hmm. And also Jack is my like, online like Fortnite friend.
Yes.
Don't kill him, please.
Yeah, please don't kill him. He's my only buddy. Yeah. I mean, again, I think I don't know. Because I was going to say, I don't think that the movie's trying to comment on that whole, like, if you follow Jordan Peterson and go down the alt-right rabbit hole, like, it's bad. I thought it was just like a thing that they were talking about. But you're right. It is like
the whole movie is like
it
Jordan
is bad if you do that though.
Yeah, well, I mean, the whole movie is basically like Jordan Peterson as an avatar for like all internet personalities essentially that appeal to young men. Mm-hmm. They're trying to drag the world back into the 50s and make women their slaves.
Right. Again, not subtle.
Not subtle. Also not really true either. There certainly are like a lot of manosphere people who are trying to do that, but I don't think that's true of all of them. And that's not true of all personalities who appeal to young men generally.
Right. I just like, so we're clearing the record straight on all of this. Yes, I agree. But a lot of people like that idea of, I mean, that was basically what Trump ran his whole campaign on. He was like, make America great again. Okay, define great. Oh, that time with the good music and the cars and the...
Yeah, but then the other thing is like they reframe it purely through a feminist lens where it's like the bigger issues arguably were the state of racial minorities substantially
but that's when a lot that isn't that when when did the feminine mystique come out? Because I know like that era was also a huge time for like feminism took hold there as well. And again,
like this is explicitly framing it in the context of the 1950s, right?
Right.
So this is post Susan B. Anthony. This is post like women have the right to vote ostensibly in this simulation or in whatever this simulation is trying to imitate or signal. So this is more like that 1960s like has yet to happen sort of deal. Mm-hmm. But like the issue with wanting to return to the 1950s from like a cultural perspective, like, yeah, obviously relationship between the sexes is part of it, but like a much bigger issue is how Black people and Hispanic people and a lot of minorities were treated, where they were like murdered indiscriminately by police and roving gangs of racists without any sort of punishment. I mean, it's weird to like reframe that entire problem through one specific lens, if that is what they are trying to criticize, because the way the movie works ideologically is so heavily gendered. It's really like a men versus women type of thing instead of like there's no intersectionality to it, to use a popular buzzword of the day.
Right. Like it would be more compelling, for example, if the main female character, like if we're talking about excuse me, it'd be more accurate if we were going intersectionality if it were like, see, you didn't see that one terrible George Clooney movie that starred Matt Damon that I can't remember what it was called.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Oh my god! Okay, I need to.
It is Julianne Moore's Two People, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess like what I'm trying to say is when you were saying like this movie is criticizing a broader like let's go back to the 50s mindset, I don't know if that's exactly true because it only takes one sliver of what's wrong with that.
Right, but I don't think the idea is like to use it as oh my god. I think like it's to comment on one aspect of it. I mean, like, because the 50s still weren't great for women either, right? And yeah, I agree with you. Like, if they really wanted to pound it home, it would be better if it were like, I don't know. I feel like it's Suburbicon. That was the name of the movie.
Suburbicon, that's right.
Because that's what happened in Suburbicon. It was the main plot was about like Matt Damon being weird. And the subplot was this black family moves in and all of and like it ended up tearing the neighborhood apart, which is, the more interesting storyline.
Well, exactly. Like, so if this movie was generally about the 50s and the danger of 50s nostalgia, I feel like Kiki Lane would
be a better
the star,
main character.
It would be her movie.
Yeah, but I still it doesn't, just because that probably would be more compelling. it doesn't mean that this point of view isn't any less relevant. I mean, it's the same discussion we get into with like, oh yeah, Greta Gerwig only makes movies about white women for white women, and Sofia Coppola only makes movies about white women for white women. It's like, yeah, we judge them based off of that, but like, I mean, like, yeah, it would be better, but
Well, I mean, and
of
that's
course,
why I'm
there's the
trying
flip
to-
side to that.
That's why I'm trying to judge the movie within the specifics of what I think it's trying to say. Because I don't think it's commenting on like sort of I don't think it's commenting on broader conservatism's love of the 1950s. I think it's commenting
Right.
specifically.
It's using it just as
on-
set dressing,
It's using it as set dressing. I think it's commenting
Yeah.
specifically on
which I think is fine.
like young men, the internet, and their relationship with women.
Well, but I mean, a lot of these young men are being fed this thing like, oh yeah, you know, like specifically young white men are fed this thing like, yeah, well, let's go back to a time when we were reigning supreme, you know, and like that's kind of the symbol of it through things like video games too. You know, you have a lot of that kind of imagery and like, I don't know, BioShock's the only game that comes to mind. And yeah, I mean, and then there's also like the idea of like drawing from the Stepford Wives, the whole like I haven't seen either of them, but I've seen enough commercials and people making, you know, half-hearted references to them that it was also probably a half-hearted reference to it. Or even like Edward Scissorhands. There's like a little bit of Edward Scissorhands feel to it too with the 1950s and stuff. So, I mean, you know, I guess the idea of like association of housewives in that time and putting women in their place and, you know, hashtag girl bosses. So,
Yeah,
I feel.
it's weird too because like the reality they live in is actually probably nicer to women than the actual 1950s were.
Definitely.
Because like no ladies are ever just like munching amphetamine pills and getting slapped around like they did back then, you know?
Right. As long as they cook the steak, right?
Well, I mean, like, like there is zero domestic abuse in the entire movie, really.
Yeah.
Until
yeah.
until the very end when
Until Gemma Chan.
yeah.
I don't know. I like it. Probably not a movie I'll go back to because it's kind of slow. But I didn't think it was the worst thing ever.
It's one of those movies where it's like kind of competent, but then the twist blows everything up and calls everything into question. And then it leads me down this rabbit hole of like, why this? Why this? Why this? Why this? Why this? Why this? You know, like,
I think you said it best. Kind of competent. I would say that's Olivia Wilde as a director. Kind of competent. Because that's how I felt about, like, I really enjoyed Booksmart, but probably because, like, the things that happened in Booksmart were smart, and then, like, the actors did a good job, and occasionally there was a really cool moment with the cinematography, and occasionally they did this thing. So, you know, but if you give someone who's kind of competent a bad script, and they fail to execute it properly, you run into problems. Did I oversimplify it?
I guess. It's just, it's like, it's through and through, like, both derivative and strange. And it also, like, it comes out at a weird time, too.
I mean, they gotta make money.
Well, I mean, that, but it's also, I mean, they obviously couldn't have predicted it, but, like, I mean, right now, there's basically, like, a women's movement in Iran that has essentially turned into, like, a revolution where they're trying to overthrow the government. Because things are so bad for, well, everyone, but especially women there, that they're just like, fuck it, we need to annihilate this regime at all costs.
Right.
So it's like we have that as a direct juxtaposition to, you know, this really nice metaverse world is bad because I'm not able to girl boss all over my soy boyfriend.
I mean, again, I think it's more of like the imposition of being imprisoned in this world. Even
well, that's the thing. Like
they make
the thing that makes it work is the fact that they are imprisoned there against their will,
right?
Without their knowledge.
But
like
that's a pretty big thing. You know?
Yeah,
like,
but that's like, if this was all, I don't know. If they weren't being literally held captive, the movie ideologically would fall apart. You know what I mean?
Right. No, but that's I mean, but that's like that
I
was
mean,
the
so
point.
that's why they do it.
Yeah, that's why he's putting like drops of water in her eyes and like squeezing a disgusting rag
so
of
gross.
water in her mouth. Like this is not, these are intentionally terrible things. This is intentionally terrible shit. So anyway, that's why I feel like it's perfectly fine. Maybe a little bit too heavy-handed. It's fine. It's fine. But yeah, I can understand. I can understand saying that it really is not like. It is really not the movie for you.
No, yeah, like I said, it's one of those movies that could just be a fine, forgettable, whatever. Mm-hmm. But it just that last twist, man, it is a twist. It is a twist for the ages. Because it really just scrambled my brain.
Do you want to talk about some of the behind the scenes drama, or do you even care about it?
We could. I mean, it's mildly interesting. It's the most interesting thing I think about the behind the scenes drama are the allegations that Florence Pugh directed sections of this movie.
I would be interested because, like, especially because the response is so bad, you'd think she'd want to distance herself as far away from rumors like that. But I think, like, I think the most interesting thing to me was when Olivia Wilde was like, well, one, the fact that now everyone knows who Olivia Wilde is, like, oh man, God, that infamy. I remember when she was 13 on House. Like the idea that she went on a show and she's like, if it were a male director, we wouldn't be talking about the drama. And I want to address that because like she's about 75% right. As you know, I am a huge Steven Spielberg fan. Everyone on the podcast should know this. And very, very publicly, Spielberg had a huge issue with Julia Roberts in the filming of Hook, to which he said he called her Tinker Hell and refused to work with her ever again. So these things of drama do get out there. And also to that end, one of Spielberg's, well, I guess arguably one of Spielberg's worst movies is, because I don't think it's actually that bad, but Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, which starred his future wife. So you could make an argument that when people put their wives or future wives in movies, it is not necessarily the best of movies.
Well, I do think Olivia Wilde is like 75% correct in that statement.
Yeah, that's why I said 75%. Yeah.
Look, yeah, because I mean, you think about like what went on with Josh Trank, Miles Teller, and the producers on Fantastic Four. A lot like that did not get nearly the buzz that this did. Like it was reported on, but it wasn't as widely reported on as this. Or
I don't know. That was pretty everywhere. Oh, maybe it's just because we traveled in the same circles.
Yeah.
The same film circles,
But like regular people weren't talking about it. It wasn't like celebrity gossip. It was like movie nerd gossip.
Right. Well, Michael Cimino in Days of Heaven. Or Heaven's Gate.
I don't know. I mean,
Okay.
The other example I can think of is Snow White and the Huntsman.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, Kristen Stewart had an affair with the director while she was dating Robert Pattinson. Mm-hmm. Like that was really heavily covered, but it was all bashing Kristen Stewart.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, oh, isn't she such a hoe? Like she's cheating on her boyfriend with a married man. Never from the frame of a married man is cheating on his wife with a woman who's like 20 years younger than him.
Yeah.
So I do think Olivia Wilde is somewhat correct in that assessment.
Yeah.
I also think that the drama that has been alleged about this movie is so hilariously weird. It is compelling regardless of who directed it.
I mean, I also agree that like this probably wouldn't have gotten out if it were any other movie, but like
and
Florence
who knows? It
Pugh
could all be fake.
I really hope it's not true. Well, okay, I don't care about the Shia LaBeouf stuff. Like Shia LaBeouf, fuck him. I mean, I'm done with him. Stop trying to make Shia LaBeouf happen. All right. There's only one LaBeouf, And that LaBeef is in True Grit, and he's played by Matt Damon. But like the stuff with like Olivia Wilde and Florence Pugh, if it's getting this much traction, it's kind of sad if it's legit, because like obviously sometimes people just don't like working with each other. I'm sure Christopher Nolan has a number of people that he's worked with that he's just like, I'm good. I never need to work with you again. But we never hear about it.
Exactly. But I mean, for all we know, this drama could just be a work. You know, it could be some just WWE stuff.
Yeah. Try and like drum up more press for the movie. But I don't see it like actually getting more people into the theaters. Like I feel like the trailers did a much better job of like getting people curious about this than anything. And now all this drama comes out, and it's like, and the reviews come out, and people are like, you know what, maybe I don't need to see this movie.
I don't know, man. The trailers, mostly because of where I stand on psychological thrillers as a genre, the trailers did nothing for me. I was like, man, this movie looks boring as hell. And then once all the other stuff came out, I'm like, oh, you know what? Maybe it's like so bad it'll be funny.
Was it?
Not really. No, it was. I was initially correct. It was like, oh, this movie's boring as hell.
Until the end. The end gotcha.
Oh yeah, the end is fascinating for all the wrong reasons.
It's the whole. It's just like the Jim Carrey Dumb and Dumber. So what you're saying is I have a chance at being funny. Like, yes, not for the right reasons. Don't worry, darling. But
like the twist did make me laugh. Mm-hmm. Like the fact that it is all a video game, I thought was really funny.
Yeah, I really liked it. I thought it worked, but I can definitely say that for 90. I'm big into percentages today. For 90% of people, it definitely was just like a joke. It was Martha all over again.
Oh yeah.
Isn't it a
also
coincidence?
just it so unsubtly tries to make a very specific point, which
You're not
that's hard to
about.
do. I'm not about it generally, but like it's hard to do well in a work of art, you know. Especially when like it's like especially the character of Frank is designed to recall very like specific individuals in the real world.
Right.
Where it's like, oh, God, I don't know. It's kind of like Knives Out, where it's like a lot of their conversation
All
is
of
so
the characters
specific.
are kind of cringy. Yeah.
Well, it's like all the conversation and a lot of what it's saying ideologically. Well, not a lot of it, but like
The worst parts.
The worst parts of it are so specific to the time in which it is made that it'll be like incomprehensible.
The worst parts are when the worst parts of Knives Out is when Rian Johnson is directly making fun of the people who didn't like one of his movies.
Yeah, it's
why
like,
it's so
man,
cringy.
you know this is not going to hold up. Where it's like, the thing with Get Out is that,
It was good.
well, it's very good, but also it's archetypal enough where it's commenting not on specific people at a specific time, but it's talking about like broad cultural ideas that have been in place for decades, but then brings them to life using kind of specific icons. Right. Like when Bradley Whitford talks about Obama, that's like a very specific reference, but it's used to talk about a phenomenon that is as old as, this country, really.
Right. And not only that, it's like if you focus on like, you know, like the sort of slang terms of the day, like this movie and Knives Out does, it's going to age you. But if you go with something that's like a historic thing and like, because it's been what, 6 years since Obama's been out of office, and yet it's still like, yeah, man, I have it's like I'm a fighter for the black people. I voted for Obama. Like that's never gonna go away.
It's like you're like kind of just the
because like you comment on history, on broad strokes of history.
Yeah, it's like because like the template of a modern day Democrat is like an old thing. It's existed forever. Mm-hmm. It's expressed using kind of modern means, but like you can find examples of it at the turn of the century, not this century, but the prior one. of
Right.
people who were like, oh yeah, like I care about civil rights and equality and stuff, but then still just view black people as props. Um, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I know. I hear you. Yeah. So, skip the movie. It's going to be out on HBO Max in a couple of days anyway, I'm sure.
Yeah.
For most people, skip the movie. I think like I said, I think it's just fine. Sophomore efforts are very hard.
Yeah. Well, I haven't seen Booksmart, so I can't really comment there.
Yeah, but also like Booksmart also feels cheaper and smaller. And I think that's
I
like,
can see that.
yeah, it's kind of nice. And the plot's not that convoluted. It's a pretty simple plot. Two people who never experienced high school want to experience the best part of high school in one crazy night. It's super bad for girls.
Okay. That's what the marketing was.
That's what the marketing was, and that's what the movie was. Although I liked it better than Superbad. I was not a Superbad person.
Really? Okay, well.
Yeah, I didn't like Superbad. I don't like my least favorite moments in Booksmart are the parts where it feels like two people who are just riffing.
Oh.
And
I see what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I still cringe at that. I remember when not to go on too much of a tangent, but when Knocked Up came out, and they're like, yeah, they shot so many feet of film for this movie. They improvised so many lines, and I was like, wow, that's amazing. It's so raw and real. And I look back now and I'm like, wow, none of these scenes have clean endings. That must have been terrible for the editor. Like there's this moment where like Paul Rudd goes on this like really long riff in the beginning of the movie, and then all of a sudden they just awkwardly cut like, so what are we gonna do today? And I was like, wait, what? No, I'm not. I am not a Judd Apatow fan. And I used to be okay with his movies, but I've since learned that there are other directors out there who are much better. Anyway, that's my review of Judd Apatow. Gabe, if they wanted to like subscribe or write us hate mail because we're not #girlboss enough, where would they go?
They can send hate mail or Patreon links to weird podcasters who will radicalize me and Matt to video@underthewheels.com. You can find us on Facebook, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, all that jazz. Music by Mike. Yeah, skip. Don't worry, darling. It's not worth your time.
Or should we say, don't worry, darling, you can skip it?
Oh.
Ooh. God. It gets worse and worse every time, doesn't it?
It does.
There was another movie I saw. Oh, you know what you should have seen this week instead? You should have seen the re-release of Avatar in 3D.
No thanks. If you've seen any movie, you've seen Avatar.
That's true. That's true. It is archetypal movie, the movie.
Yep.
With that said, I am Matthew.
I'm Gabe.
And you have just been Under the Wheels. I'm probably a lot further left than either of you guys. But, like, yeah, I just look at...
It depends on which
policy.
issue. I'm either very far right or very far left, depending on what we're talking about.
Ooh, what are you very far right on?
I think we should have socialism, but for guns. I think the state should provide every citizen with, like, a M1 Garand.
So you're big and fine on the Second Amendment, huh?
Oh, yeah. I love the Second Amendment. I mean, you look at Iran right now and just think, like, man, if they had guns, this would be so much easier.
It's a weird thing because, like, I've never been... Like, I think that there should be controls out there, right? But I also, like... Obviously, I live in the South. I've driven across the country multiple times. There are people out there who need firearms in order to just make sure that they are safe. Mm-hmm. Now, with that said, you don't need to bring those goddamn firearms into... So wait, would you want teachers carrying guns in school?
See, that's a difficult one. I don't know about that. I think well, here's the thing. I think there should be a because you know how like schools. I don't know if they do this anymore, but you know how schools used to teach kids how to drive.
Yeah, certain schools do still. Yeah.
Okay, I think all schools should do that. Like you should be like all schools should have like home economics. They should teach you how to drive. I think they should also like if we're gonna have a system where everyone gets guns.
Yeah.
I think they should also teach you like how to shoot and how to properly own, maintain, and be safe with a firearm.
Mm-hmm.
And like the same way you pass your driving class, you get a certificate, you can go to the DMV and take your driving test and get your license. I think the same thing. It's like you go through your 11th grade firearms course or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Get your certificate if you pass everything, then go to I don't know, like a what are those things called?
Firing range? To test
Not a
it out?
firing range. What's a deposit of like a public deposit of weapons? An armory.
Oh yeah.
There should be like people's armories around the country, where you just go to one. You're like, okay, like take this test. You'll be supervised by an instructor, and then you pass the test. You get your license, and you get like I don't know. I feel like an M1 Garand is a good one because it's like a solid rifle, but it's also super old, and it's it's single fire. So it's like. You know what I mean? Like it's like a handy, reliable weapon, but you can't do too much damage with it.
Oh, this is totally going on the podcast. This is fucking hilarious. I believe I believe in the Second Amendment. I believe the right to bear arms, but I don't mean modern fucking arms. I mean arms when the fucking Constitution was written arms.
No, like it's a World War II era gun.
Oh,
man.
I'm sorry,
Come on.
World War II. Oh
And it has
my
a cool
god.
ping sound that it makes when you run out of ammunition.
Oh yeah. I saw Saving Private Ryan. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I'm all about the ping.
All right. So what's an issue you're super far to the left on?
I think housing is a human right. Actually,
What's another- Go ahead.
here's my logical. Okay, this is why my personal magazine where I just rant at people is going to be Facts and Logic. This is like how I deduce most of my political opinions. Right?
Objectively, this is how it works.
This is objectively how it works. And by objectively, I mean just like regular deductive reasoning, which is completely subjective.
Yes, of course. Your Sherlock Holmes hat is on. I'm Dr. Watson. I was talking with Gabe, and go ahead.
So basically, like, I believe that people have a right to life, right? So that's like, even enshrined in our whatever founding documents: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Right.
Right to life. What does it mean? You have the right to not die.
Okay.
So that means two things. You have the right to defend yourself, to protect your life, and you have the right to things that will sustain your life. So the right to protect yourself is the right to carry a weapon, right to self-defense. The right to sustain your life is the right to food, medicine, and shelter.
Okay. What about? Oh yeah, you said medicine. Okay.
So yeah, I think we should have. I think housing is a human right. I think like we should have public housing to take care of homeless people and poor people. I think we should develop a way of being able to distribute some sort of food to every person in the country. I believe that we should have universal health care, and I think that we should have a universal self-defense program, which is, in my view, firearms for everyone.
Firearms for everyone. All right. What about military? Would you take money out of the military budget in order to help fund some of this because we're giving everyone a gun?
100%.
Yeah. It seems like that would. I feel like that would work until there's like some sort of like 1776 uprising against the government for some reason. I don't know why it would happen.
Well, it probably wouldn't be that. I mean, I think the bigger issue would be like a huge war between various world powers. I mean, I think like obviously you need a military. You don't need our military. And also our military, like the way that it is funded is full of just graft and corruption and like irresponsible use of taxpayer money, which does not need to be the case. You know, it's like I was at the Miramar Air Show this past weekend, and I got to see them do like demos of the F-35 and the F-22, which are really impressive planes. Like it's amazing what they're able to do.
Yeah.
But like each one costs a few $1 billion, or at least $8 billion. And I don't think the United States has seen air-to-air combat since World War II. And that's what those planes are designed for. They're designed for air-to-air combat.
Okay.
So it's like, why are we spending billions of dollars on planes that will never be used? I don't know. I just sort of assume it's welfare for the military-industrial complex.
Finished.